Hi everyone, my name's Lily and I'm the book reviewer behind Utopia State of Mind, and today I'm going to be sharing with you my June wrap up. So first of all, let me just show you all of the physical books that I read in June, and I actually read a bunch of them in June, mostly because I'm trying to get ready for July. So this is the pile. As you can tell, if you've been following me for a little bit, these are more books than I normally read physically, so I'm excited to chat about those in a little bit. I first want to chat a little bit about how June went, period. Let me just start off with what I made in June. After May, if you saw my wrap up, I will link it down below. I crocheted a bunch of shirts that I showed last time. I have since then woven all the ends and I blocked them and they look a little bit better. But I also did a shirt, and I can't remember if I finished this in May or in the beginning of June, so apologies if I already did that. But I made this red shirt. Let me just find the front for you. It's a different style than the other ones. So these are the straps for the shirt. Hold on. These are the straps for the shirt, and this is what it looks like. I really like it so far. I'm trying to use up a bunch of old cotton yarn. I have not washed this or woven in the ends, but I'm really excited for this one. But I do think that my foray in shirts are done. I don't think I'll be making shirts for a little bit. I'm not a summer person, and so these were kind of just things that I could see myself wearing in summer, but summer is not the season that I'm knitting or crocheting for. Currently, in June, I was working a lot on a cardigan for a friend, and that's just taking a while. I'm also working on a second Babel scarf, so I can show you all how to do that. That's going to be a 2-part video, so I need to finish that, at least the first part for the first part of the video. But similarly to in June, I got injured a bunch in a variety of different ways, and one of them, which is why I'm talking about it, was that when I was dyeing some clothes, which dyeing clothing has been kind of my trend for June, I dyed a jumpsuit and I dyed a skirt, and so when I was dyeing one of them, I pinched a nerve basically in my finger, and so it was making it really hard to do stuff with my finger because if I did something that would be in a similar movement, then my finger would kind of tingle or get pins and needles or go numb. So that was kind of what I was working with in June, and I didn't get to do a lot of what I wanted to, which was basically the scarf and just other projects. I did a bunch of clay earrings though before that happened. And a lot of them aren't done, so I can't really show them to you, but this pair is done. I don't know if you can see it because you're very far away, but I've been doing that a little bit more. And so that's kind of how June was in general. If you've been following me on TikTok, for example, though, I have been talking about how much I despised running. And in June, I didn't do a lot of running because I also got hurt while running. So in general, June has been a month to kind of remember and to remind myself to take it easy and do things gently within moderation, which is something I'm not very good at, but I'm trying. It'll be the kind of thing I also have to do in July as well, so fingers crossed. I'm going to talk about books that I really loved and book stats. So first, for the book stats, I read 36 books in June. A lot of them were on audiobooks. A lot of them were actually books I started in May and then just ended up finishing in June. Of those, I had 22% with queer characters as main characters, and 53% of those with people of color as the main characters of the story. So not precisely on my target goal, but pretty close. It's because I'm reading a lot of books for July. I mentioned this in a few other videos before. Since I'm always reading according to release date and I'm trying to read for the next month during that month, you see my stats in terms of kind of TBRs and stuff a little bit skewed that way. In terms of favorite books, I was all over the place in terms of genre, age groups, whatever. I had so many books that I really loved, but I truly mean I have favorites from sort of middle grade, from memoirs, from sci-fi fantasy, from young adult, from adult, like just kind of all across the spectrum of what I read. I had kind of something I loved in each different genre. So I'm going to start off with the YA contemporary things that I read and loved. The first is Past, Present, Future. I really loved Rachel Lynn Solomon's books, but Past, Present, Future is one of my favorite. I really love books that happen kind of on the what happens after the happily ever after, or happily for now. And Past, Present, Future is actually the sequel to Today, Tonight, Tomorrow. So it happens after a happily for now. But I think what I really loved as well is that it delves into a long distance relationship and the troubles with that, and kind of exploring that kind of dynamic, and also the dynamic of kind of like, how do you stay in love? And so I'm really attracted to kind of those two ideas, and Past, Present, and Future were just kind of those mixed all in one. If you read the first one, then you definitely should read the sequel, but also if those are kinds of themes that you like, then you definitely pick up that one. The next one is 12th Night. This is a 12th Night retelling, but it's set in a YA contemporary, and it was just so fun. So 12th Night, for a little bit of context, is probably my favorite Shakespeare play. It's nostalgic for me for a variety of reasons. It's the first one I ever saw as a kid, first one I saw in puppets, first one I saw performed, lots of firsts. And so 12th Night is just such a beautiful reimagining of the story. It has the kind of swoons, but I think what I really, really loved is that 12th Night kind of embodies Madwoman vibes, because it's like this Viola, our main character, is just so angry, but rightfully so, right? She experiences a lot of sexism within the world. A lot of people are telling her to calm down. It's not so serious. Like, just a lot of sexism within the gamer space as well. And as someone who's dabbled and has survived all of these kinds of things before, Viola was my character to a T. I loved watching her character development, but also the character's treatment of her as well, in terms of her friendships and also her other relationships, and how they kind of view her, because I felt like she is kind of me, a bit mix of me kind of as a teen, but also the me that is today. So that was just really fun to read. The next one is Brownstone. This is actually a graphic novel, and what I really loved about this one is that it deals about being biracial. It deals with the main characters, one of their parents. They don't speak the same language, and so what I really loved is that it examines those things, and it explores those kinds of feelings about not really fitting in with certain parts of our family. How do we explore language difficulties and language barriers? I love seeing that in a graphic novel, or kind of just anything in any book. I love seeing kind of cultural assimilation, seeing people being stuck between two cultures. As a transracial adoptee, biracial identity and biracial struggles feels the closest without being the same in terms of struggles, in terms of theme explorations. And so I think that's why I was really drawn to Brownstone. The final one in the YA contemporary mix is Joined at the Joints. This is a book that explores chronic illness. I would highly recommend it. I think this would be a great conversation partner with Conditions of a Heart, which is on my shelf, but I can't remember if it's Conditions of a Heart. I think both of these books really encapsulate this idea of feeling limited by our own body, and also having the kind of fulfillment and the satisfaction and the deep soul resonating quality of someone who can see us and understand us, and realize that it's not only kind of just saying sorry or whatever, it's also knowing how we feel and not having to pretend around people. That's kind of a universal theme, but within chronic illness, and specifically these two books are about teens as well, I think that it adds an extra layer to the conversations of that experience. And so I really loved Joined at the Joints. Next, I'm going to be chatting about the adult speculative fiction that I really loved. The first one is Assyrian Memoir. If you love animal talking or talking to animals, I think this is definitely a book you have to read. It's a swoony fantasy, not only about that, but it's also about not wanting our own powers and our capabilities to be used against us, or to be exploited for that only. And secondly, in terms of romance, but also character development, it's a lot about finding someone who can see us for who we are, someone who doesn't ask us to compromise who we are and compromise the things we're passionate about. So all things that I really love. The next one is The Spell Shop. So I actually have some of these in front of me. The next one is The Spell Shop. This one was just supremely cozy. This is another like cozy fantasy that's totally my vibe. I'll link down below the panel that I just did about cozy fantasy, but the spell shop is definitely this. I really loved the way that it talks about home and belonging, and this idea that like some place that we've left behind, do we still belong there? Is it still our home? It talks about that, but it also talks about kind of opening our heart up to people around us, as in a cozy fantasy setting. So I really, really loved this. And also the cover is just so gorgeous. And after I've read it, I think that it's a great experience when after you've read a book, you can look at a cover and see the added details and the different ways that it reflects the book underneath. The next one is All This and More, which is an adult sci-fi choose your own adventure book. I have really enjoyed all the books I've read by Peng Shepherd, and All This and More was just so fun in the way that it is an adult choose your own adventure book. It was a little bit hard for me to read digitally because in terms of kind of being able to flip, so I would definitely recommend reading this physically if you can, just because it's a little bit easier. There are little bits at the end which feel a little bit hasty, but I think it's because you get stuck in this kind of all of a sudden things are really happening. And what can I say about it? I really love choose your own adventure books. I think the first literary project I ever tried to write as a kid was a choose your own adventure book. So this was also super nostalgic, but I also really liked this kind of way that it encapsulates this universal feeling of FOMO, basically, and also this idea with the technology, what would we do if we didn't have to FOMO, right? Like if we could go through all of these different paths and always kind of chase these, oh, what would happen if I did this? Or what would happen if I did that? All of these limitless choices, but then also so deeply introspective and kind of asking, will we ever find a perfect life? Could we ever do so? What would be perfect about it? It deals with all of those, but also in kind of a sci-fi, almost thriller vibe as well. The next one is Long Live Evil. That is this one. This one was just really fun in the way that it feels kind of meta. So basically the main character goes into the world of her favorite book. And so it feels kind of meta because the main character knows a lot of tropes. They know what happened in the book. They know all of these different things. But I think at the core of Long Live Evil is also this idea about embracing villainy, monstrosity. And also what I liked as well in this one is how it looks different for certain genders, but how a villainous woman versus a villainous man versus a villainous person, like how it looks for all of these different things. One of the comments I really loved in Long Live Evil, because it has a very self-reflective, critical look at kind of fantasy tropes while being a fantasy novel. And one of the things I really, really loved was it talks about how villains are in the book the only kind of true human characters, because we get to see their flaws, their jealousies, their mistakes, all kind of emblematic on the page, whereas heroes are these kind of perfect, don't have any mistakes, they always make the right choices. And I really loved kind of this idea about villains being able to be the most human of all of the characters. There are so many different quotes that I really loved. So once I get back into hand lettering and able to use a pen again, I'm going to be hand lettering some of these. I also wanted to mention two urban fantasies that I really enjoyed. The first one is Blood Jade, which is a sequel to Ebony Gate. I really enjoyed this one. This is an urban fantasy. It felt very nostalgic. Both of these felt very nostalgic to me, to kind of bring me back to my paranormal urban fantasy roots, which I read a bunch as a teen. Like that was my most read genre, paranormal urban fantasy / romantasy, before it was ever called that. Blood Jade as well is a book. Similarly, if you liked Ebony Gate, it's like that because we have the same characters. It's a sequel, but I think it also delves into family and allegiance. I think in Ebony Gate, a lot of it was kind of what happens in this new start, and Blood Jade kind of delves into what happens if we can't escape our past. Can we ever escape our past? Can we ever escape our family? How do we reconcile all these memories, the idea of home, what it means now, and family in general? And then the next one was Nine-Tailed. It's actually a series opener, and it's another urban fantasy, contemporary fantasy, paranormal fantasy, basically. I'm not really sure, honestly, what the differences are between all of those things. But Nine-Tailed was swoony. It also has a lot to do with destiny and prophecy and what would we do if we're confronted with a destiny or prophecy we don't like, there's all these sort of secrets, not only about secrets that our family's keeping, but secrets that we don't even know we're keeping. It was just such a fun ride, while also being a story about choices and a story about what choices that we would make. I now want to talk about my middle grade favorite, and it is the Cookie Crumbles. Cookie Crumbles is written by two of my favorite authors, and what I really loved about the Cookie Crumbles is not only is it a story about friendship, but it's like a murder mystery, Great British Bake Off kind of locked room mystery. It just felt like something that I would so love as a middle grade person. It's about someone who really wants to be a baker and their friend who really wants to be a journalist, and then they come together for this kind of baking that turns into a murderish mystery kind of thing. And I really loved watching the friendship evolve and develop and just be a really sweet, precious middle grade, but also being about having a passionate love for baking and also solving a murder. The next one is Lulu Dean's Library of Banned Books. This was just so fun while also being so rage-inducing. So it's basically about banned books, which is incredibly timely at the moment, which is why it's so rage-inducing. We talk about these titles that were like banned and why they were banned, and we also talk about these other ones that are supposed to be better. It has a very like a villainous antagonist character that's just so easy to not like. And I really liked as well that it talks about a variety of different characters. In my review, I'm more cohesive, but it also comes back to the power of books, a little bit about the power of books and why people are afraid of them, but also the power of books to like the idea that there's always a book out there for someone, a right book at a right time. That is Lulu Dean's Little Library of Banned Books. It's a mouthful of a title. I'm not even sure if it's Little Library or Library, but anyway, if you love or want a book that has a dash of realism, but also a dash of hope and a dash of just sort of preciousness while also being funny and also like frustrating and rage-inducing, but just a great kind of roller coaster of emotions that kind of brings you up and then sort of brings you down to earth and then brings you up and, you know, kind of like that. That is Lulu Dean's Library of Banned Books. The next one is a romance book that I really enjoyed, and it's a novel love story. I've been reading Ashley Poston books for a really long time, but a novel love story has to be my favorite of the adult romances from Ashley Poston. First of all, kind of like Long Live Evil, what if you fell into the scene or fell into the world of your favorite book series? A novel love story. But I think what also I loved about that one is that the main character feels very much like she's stagnant and all of her friends' lives are kind of passing her by. It's also a book that talks about grief and loss and being open to love again and open to sort of new connections again, but also the choice about love. The choice to love someone is a huge theme in a novel love story. The next one is a memoir, and it is Sorry for the Inconvenience. I really loved Farah Naz Rishi's I Hope You Get This Message, which is Farah's debut, and this is Farah's memoir, and it was so great. Also, highly recommend if you love audiobooks. The audiobook is narrated by the author, who is also a voice actor, audiobook narrator in general. So all in all, loved it so much, and it manages to be hilarious and tender and heartfelt and vulnerable all at once. It's inspired by this TikTok marriage of convenience true life story, but it goes so much farther into kind of what happens before that and being all these decisions and choices we have to make to be open for love and to be open for change and to be open to develop and grow as a person. And the ways that sort of love can manifest when we're not even looking, I guess, is this as well. And it was just, I think it has to be one of my favorite memoirs I've ever read. So definitely would recommend that. I have a YA fantasy recommendation, and it's the last one. And I had a really great reading month. If that was the only thing that was going for me, it was the great reading month. And it is The Girl with No Reflection. So many things that I liked about this book, I can't actually talk about without spoiling it. But, what can I say? One of the things I really liked is, okay, I'm a sucker for a good theme, okay? I guess I should mention that as well, kind of in all of my book reviews. Good themes are my bread and butter. But in general, the world idea for The Girl with No Reflection was fabulous. I love this idea of this mirror world, but also a mirror world in which the mirrors start to learn from us as humans and they start to become our mirror. Like there are a lot of, I don't even know if that was too spoiler. Like there are a lot of spoilery things I want to talk about, but it's a book that is deeply committed to talking about betrayal, what happens if you trust the wrong people, what happens if you don't know who to trust. It talks about power, our own personal power, our own personal capabilities and abilities. And as I said, the theme, the world kernel of the idea of The Girl with No Reflection was really fabulous. I love the interplay between the mirror world and the mirror characters and the real characters. Like all of that just kind of haunted me after I finished reading. So those were all of my favorite books for June. A ton of favorite books over really kind of every genre I possibly read. Please let me know down below what some of your favorite books are that you read in June, and anything that you made in June. I will see you in the next video. Have a really great rest of your reading day, week, month, and year, and I'll see you again.